You know what? Just be you. Don't be unapologetically you. There is a reason why you came to this world. There is a reason why you came to this profession. There is a reason why you are listening to this interview today. Be you. Don't be anybody else.
Greetings and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. And I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am extremely honored and excited today to have Grissel Hernandez here. And so welcome to the show, Grissel.
Thank you, Charlene, for inviting me. This is so exciting.
Yes, I'm extremely excited. Now, the way that I found out about Grissel's name is always mentioned when you hear Caring Science. And so I always heard so much about her. So when I had an opportunity to see her the other day, I was like, oh my God, this is the Grissel that everyone talks about. So Grissel, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to jump right into our conversation.
Sure. Well, thank you again, and hello and greetings to everybody from Santa Clara, California. I am a Caritas coach. I have been a Caritas coach since 2011, cohort number 5, and currently I am the executive director for the Center for Education and Professional Development at Stanford Health Care here in California. And I am also a holistic nurse. And I hail from beautiful Ay Bonito, Puerto Rico. I was born in the mountains of Puerto Rico and grew up in New Jersey. So being a Puerto Rican, I think, has a lot to do with how I found nursing and how I found holistic nursing and definitely caring science.
Wow, that's wonderful. So how long have you been in nursing? Like, when did you start?
So, interestingly enough, I was talking to somebody about this. I am a second-degree nurse. I've been in nursing for 25 years. December of this year will be 25 years since I graduated. And I was a social worker before I became a nurse. And my parents, my brother and I have a brother, younger brother, and we were raised in a family that was very big in social justice and serving our community. And we had 2 requests from our parents when we were growing up. Both were factory workers, did not go to college. And their request number 1 was, when you graduate from high school, you go to college. There is no ifs and buts about that. And number 2, the career that you choose when you go to college has to be one that is of service to our human beings. So I chose social work at the time, and nursing chose me.
I love that.
So that's how nursing happened. Never wanted to be a nurse, but it just manifested. And I've practiced in community health and public health, maternal newborn, and staff development, then a manager, a supervisor, a director, and here I am.
Wow, you have done quite a bit. What a expansive history. So, I decided this month to do a episode, or actually series, on nursing, the profession in crisis. And, we know that we've been going through stuff before the pandemic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, but over the last 2.5 years, almost 3 years now in particular, things have been pretty challenging for a lot of our healthcare heroes, caregivers, professionals. And so, with that being said, I would love to know, how has Grissel sustained herself through this crisis?
Sure. Yeah. You know what? And probably what I'm going to say might not be very politically correct. So I'm just going to say it. And you're absolutely right. The crisis that we are experiencing as a healthcare profession, nursing, and as a healthcare system in not only in the United States, but around the world did not happen because of COVID. It was there. What COVID did was that it finally lifted the covers and revealed the inequities. It revealed the strain, and it revealed the stresses that everybody has been experiencing, because it's not just nurses, it's everybody, from the janitors all the way, and I do have to say, all the way to the C-suite. All of us have been suffering, and obviously our nurses, because of all the healthcare professionals, we are the ones that are there 24/7. So we got to experience and work in conditions that really hurt our moral compass, right? That we had to make really difficult decisions that we knew in our hearts that were not at times caring in nature, what we understand to be caring. And for the safety of the public, we needed to enact some policies and procedures that really felt very foreign to what we understand to be caring from a compassionate and ethical way, right? And I'm not going to fault anybody for those things. What, at least for me, I was in a very difficult situation because, I'm not married. I don't have any children. So I could give of myself as much as I could. And at the same time, I don't do direct patient care, but my department is responsible, or was responsible, for making sure that all of our staff understood how to use their PPE, keeping up with the fast-moving information, and giving it in a way that people could understand, because we were moving very fast. And at the same time, kind of life continued, because we were still hiring new people, and we still needed to orient them, and we had to move in the way, we had to think very differently. So what, at least for me, I'm going to talk to you from two different places. From the place of the whoever is responsible, the nurse administrator responsible for a department that needed to move really fast so that we could keep our staff safe, and in turn our patients. I needed to be very agile and very quick to make sure that my staff was available. Almost felt like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week as well. And this is a staff that is usually Monday to Friday, right?
Right.
And also knowing that their personal lives have been totally disrupted. I have young parents of young children who now their kids are not in school and they need to go to school at home. And they have to take care of them. Or I have staff whose parents, they needed to take care of their parents as well, or their parents were the caregivers of their children, and now they could not take care of their kids because they needed to protect their parents and things like that.
Right.
So I needed to work. I needed to find a way, a very caring and a very equitable way of ensuring that everybody got what they needed, meaning so that they could be effective at work, because I needed them at work, but I also needed to honor their life experiences and their the traumas that they were living in that particular moment in time. So we had to be very creative, and thank God for caring science, right? Because caring science, Caritas process number 6 tells us that when we engage in caring, we engage in this caring consciousness, and this Caritas consciousness that we put both caring and love combined to elevate the way that we do our work. Caritas number 6 says you have an opportunity to to engage in problem solving in a way that is creative, in a way that embodies all ways of knowing. It's not just the empirical that you're looking at, right? You're looking at aesthetics, you're looking at ethical knowing, you're looking at personal knowing. And it gave me permission to basically get rid of status quo and think differently about what I needed to do. And being very flexible with schedules, being very flexible with the way that we connected with each other, all those things. Thank God.
Yeah, no.
That I had at least the language and some skills or literacy, like Jean says, to be more fluid and more flexible in the way that we were doing that work. And it continues still to this day. And honestly, Charlene, I have to tell you that, nurse administrators also suffered. And
Yes.
at times I felt that they're, and you know that, right? Because we were caught in this really weird situation that we have to protect our staff because we need them to come and take care of our patients. And their suffering became our suffering.
Absolutely.
And when we had to go to them and tell them that that there were decisions that were made at an organizational level that, we could not allow people to come and visit their family members. And those were not decisions that were made lightly. I was present in many of those conversations, and there were tears shed when these decisions were made. But then having to share that with our staff, knowing full well that they were not going to accept that, or they had to do it, and that we were going to hurt them. I just felt like we were hurting them,
right?
And that hurt. I could feel it every day. And what I ended up doing, I probably have spent more time this past 2.5 years being what I called an energy worker as part of my administrative duties and my leadership duties than anything else. Because I have had, and probably some of the most profound work that I've done as a nurse leader, I know what it feels like to sit down with a staff and just listening to them, because at times that's all they need from me. Just a heart and 2 ears to fully listen to their experiences.
Yeah.
That more often than not had nothing to do with work-related issues, but manifested in work-related issues. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It sure does.
And so I have spent a lot of time and still do, just listening. So I try to the best of my abilities to create a space in my department where people can have a safe space, a psychological and physical space for them to just share how they're feeling, and I ask one question, and it's the only question that I need to ask. I don't like it when people tell me, how are you doing? Because it just doesn't feel right. I have learned from myself, and this is the go-to question that I ask all the time. Charlene, how's your heart?
Yes.
That is the question that I ask. And I just allow it. Some people go, I don't know what you're talking about, Grissel.
Hey, but that's the real question. I love that.
And you get people saying to you, it feels heavy.
Yes.
It feels joyful. Whatever it is that they tell me. So if they tell me that it feels heavy, I just say, tell me more. And why does it feel heavy? what's the sensation or whatever. And we start like that. And what I've noticed is that not necessarily people will come to my office, because I mean, we also need to protect ourselves, and we're all busy all the time.
Right.
Thank God for Zoom, because I've been able to connect with people that way as well.
Yes.
And honestly, people that don't even work for me.
Yes. Well, they can sense your presence and all that
Yeah.
you are, because even with what you're talking about right now, that listening and to, what is that? That is a Caritas process number 5, I believe, listening to the
Positive
negative
and negative
and positive.
feelings.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, especially during these last 2.5 years, because there's things that we absolutely could not change. We had
Correct.
to live with it. So for me to listen to another person's story, I think what's so powerful, what I'm hearing from you, Grissel, is your authentic listening skills. I mean, you didn't necessarily have an answer,
Yes.
but you did have a heart to listen. And
Yeah.
you opened it up for them to share, and you weren't afraid to hear the negative.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I notice that a lot of times people are afraid to hear, oh my God, they're going to start complaining. But really, this is just where we were. This is just how they're feeling. And if we can at least listen to how they're feeling, then
Yeah.
it just feels so much better when you can just release
Yeah.
it to someone.
Yeah, and it's listening beyond the words, right? Because it's,
Yes.
I mean, the words are the words, and I'm sorry, but I'm Puerto Rican, and complaining is our national pastime. We complain about everything. When we're happy, we're complaining. However, there, there is substance in the complaining that needs to be revealed. And I mean, by no stretch of the imagination am I Pollyannish. And sometimes I get caught up. I get angry, and I can be judgmental. And I can go there really fast. And I also know that there is some element of some kernel of truth behind the complaining or the negativity or whatever it is that needs to be healed, right? And
Yes.
and more often than not is, that sense of this is wrong. How can this be? And learning to not stay stuck there, because that is unhealthy, but also using that indignation, that anger, that sense of it, this is not acceptable, to say, then what are you going to do about it? And what are you going to do about it in a way that does not add
Yes.
to the anger, the hatred, because it's okay for us to be angry. I hate it when people say to me, but don't get angry. And it's not that I don't want to get angry. It's like something has to change.
Yeah.
And how do we do it in a way that we don't add to the inequities, to the disparities, to the moral injury that we are feeling right now, because you have to balance it. I've known way too many people who are very, very passionate about you know anything, insert whatever here, but sometimes the way that they go about it adds to the
Yeah.
to the things that they're claiming that they're trying to solve. So
That's
again,
kind of powerful, Grissel, what you just said. That's really powerful, because that takes me back to 2020 when the social unrest happened and all of that. I remember being so heavy and so angry about it. And so I did. I went into prayer, and then I heard these words: what you do in this moment will determine your destiny and dictate your future. And so I had an opportunity to make a choice to either stay angry or to take action, positive action in the right direction, to contribute to the solution to the problems that we were seeing. So that is so powerful, because why add fire to fire?
yeah, and there's absolutely nothing. I mean, hey, when something is wrong, we need to address it.
Yes.
Being passive about it doesn't help at all. But you have to be mindful and you have to
Yes.
be intentional and you need to be purposeful. One of the things that I appreciate about caring science and the 10 Caritas processes that I call I call them our building blocks for every intentional and meaningful experience and interaction that we are going to have with ourselves and with other people. And that is what it does. What the 10 Caritas processes do is that they give us the space and the language and the practices to come prepared for interaction so that we come to work at home open-eyed and open-heart.
Yep.
We know that we are going to that we're going to have people who are not going to be very happy with us. Hospitals are not Disneyland.
No.
Hospitals are not hotels. When people come to a hospital, especially the hospitals where you and I work, sometimes, not sometimes, they are their worst. They are suffering. They are scared. They are desperate. And if you have ever suffered, been hurt, or in pain, I'm sorry, you're not going to be in your best behavior.
Right.
I have yet to meet anybody who is okay when
No.
they're in pain, right? So knowing that we are going to encounter another human being that is a reflection of me, and that all they need from me, aside from the medications and the tests and all that kind of stuff, because those things are important as well, but knowing that my presence can serve as a potentiator of
Yes.
all these other things that I am going to give to them or that we are going to do for them, it's powerful. And we cannot afford as a profession, and we cannot afford as a healthcare system, however we want to call it. And I'm not talking just about my healthcare system. I'm talking about healthcare as
Right.
we cannot longer afford to be walking dead
No.
when we enter our spaces. We know that our energy affects the energy of others. And it doesn't matter how beautiful your spaces are in the physical sense, if inside there is this energy of turmoil and suffering that all of us bring, because I cannot leave my life in the parking lot and pretend that it's not going to affect my workday. If I had a harsh words with my husband or my wife or my children, if somebody caught me off when I'm driving, or I receive my own healthcare news, right? All those things I bring with me. So as a healthcare worker, I no longer can afford to pretend that my life experiences will not affect my work. And
Absolutely.
in turn, other people's. And can you imagine if we could see energy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Flowing all of this sadness and at the same time, the good things affect the energy. So when we are able to support each other, to allow each of us to be our better versions of ourselves at work, to share our gifts, to share our abilities, right? When we allow those things, it counteracts all the negativity that is happening. To your point, I mean,
Yeah.
bad things are going to happen. As much as we will love to,
Right.
to cover it. It's never going to go away. But caring science gives us the opportunity with those 10 Caritas processes to take care of ourselves, right? With Caritas process number
Absolutely.
1, with Caritas process number 2, really putting up front the fact that we need to be authentically present, that we need to listen to people, that we cannot be doing a million other things. When you listen, when you are authentically present in front of another human being, you listen beyond the words. You listen beyond, you can be taking care of a comatose patient,
Yes.
and you will be able to understand what that person needs from you at that moment. That person would know that you are there for them and you love them.
Absolutely.
When you are able, Carita process number 3 gives us the opportunity to really anchor ourselves in our spiritual practices, whatever those are. I don't know what they are for you. It sounds like you very much engage into a connection with your divine.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
pray as well, but one of the ways, one of the spiritual practices that I engage in is drawing and painting,
Mm-hmm.
because there are times when I cannot find the words that I need to express how I'm feeling, whether I'm happy or otherwise. And drawing has given me the opportunity to move beyond, to engage in Carita process number 6, right, and move beyond what the empirical aspects, and just engage in aesthetic ways of knowing, and I feel a connection between the divine and my drawings,
Okay.
because
Is that your drawing back there?
this one in the back is actually a drawing that I did 5 years ago.
Wow.
She is called the goddess of letting go and becoming and new beginnings.
Mm.
So her name is Becoming. And actually, this particular painting was created after a guided imagery that I did, retreat that I did. It was a creative, intentional creativity retreat that I did. And they took us through a guided imagery. And then after the guided imagery meditation, we had to write on the canvas the message that we heard. And then after the message was written, then the painting was created right on the canvas.
Wow. That's
And
powerful.
it was created. This was my way of processing my grief after the death of my husband. My
Mm.
husband died in June of 2017. He was 53 years old, and he died
Sorry for
of
your
a
loss.
heart attack. And this was created about probably like 2 months after he
Wow.
passed.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Sorry for your loss too. But
Thank you.
wow,
Thank you.
what a beautiful portrait. I was looking at it as you were talking. I was like, there's a story behind that picture.
Yes, yes. So her heart is open. She has, if you, I don't know if you can see, I think my finger is pointing at it.
Yes.
There's the third eye, right? She's open to seeing beyond what's in front of her. And then the words, it says, love, live, and laugh.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. I was wanted to go back a little bit because I think it's so important what because everything that you've been saying, Grissel, you're actually talking about you've become the work. You really have, and you're the practices that prepare you to do the different things that you're doing. Because I think about something that I dealt with. It was when I was in nursing school, and so I'm cleaning this lady up and getting her all beautiful for her family to see her the first time. And this is where I'm saying that I love that Jane she disrupted things to
Mhm.
create a language that we can use, and without me even knowing that that's what I was doing, and that's exactly what I was doing. I'm cleaning her up, getting her ready, and then all of a sudden, Grissel, she takes these long fingernails and she just puts her fingernails into my wrist, and it felt like I was gonna like die, really. And then she said, "Get your hands off of me," and she used the N word. And it just totally like stopped me, paused me. And I mean, it was such a wounding. inside. But guess what prevailed? Caritas process number 1. Practice loving kindness toward yourself and towards others. So I was able to, at that moment, love beyond where she was. Now, my thoughts, of course, probably were not the best, but my heart said, Charlene, you're going to do what your mom kind of taught you how to do, and that's the love beyond. And so that's why I think these are so powerful, because if my faith and my practices that I do didn't prepare me for that moment, I probably would have did something really stupid, said something stupid. But that's how powerful these practices are. And if we really could get them from only just reading and talking about it to actually being about it, I'm a human being that's exuding love every day that I go to work. I'm there to make an impact. I'm there to make a difference. And that really sounds like everything that you've been talking about. You intentionally are making a difference in so many people's lives. Probably your reach is so huge, you don't even know it yet. Yeah. So I just honor you for that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you know what? And I am sorry. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that and experience that. And, there's ugliness in this world. And these things, people are not born like this.
No.
My grandmother used to say to me, her name was Frances, Abuela Frances. She was my mom's mother. And she was very, very spiritual. And people used to get angry at her or question, why are you giving money to like the junkies and homeless people? Don't you know that they're going to use that money to buy booze and to buy drugs or whatever? And I remember she used to say to them, it is not my job to judge how they're going to use their money. My job is to offer them grace. And to me, the quarter that I have, that she probably couldn't needed it because she wasn't rich. I just felt compelled to do it. And I remember her saying to me, every single one of these human beings, all of us, we were children once. We were children that were very close to the spiritual world. They did not grow up. In their wildest dreams, did they think that they were going to grow up to be homeless or to be drug addict, or to be a racist? These things are they're created by our environment, and damn, they hurt. Those words hurt. And I am so sorry that you went through that. And I am also so proud of you that you went beyond the words to look at the human.
Right.
Because honestly, the words, if nothing else, were not a reflection of you. They were a reflection of her pain and her ignorance and her misunderstandings of humanity, period.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's one of the things that I want to really help people understand, that when people, they come to you and they call you all kinds of names, of course it hurts. I mean, if you are not human, unless you're in some good drugs and you don't feel a thing, of course it's going to hurt because you have an ego. And it's there to protect you in some way. Of course, it's going to hurt. But when you realize that person, there are some people who verbalize their suffering in such a way, by no stretch of the imagination am I saying that we are doormats and we allow abuse to happen. No way. No, and again, Caring Science helps us with that, because when you are fully aware, then it gives you the opportunity to have situational awareness, right? And it makes you realize when you might not be in a safe space, that you need to bring somebody else with you. Or it helps you realize that whatever is happening right now, whether you have a patient that is belligerent or whatever, like, yes, definitely you need to be safe. Number one priority, you need to keep yourself safe. And at the same time, your heart then needs to think there's something else happening here. What else
Right.
is happening? What else is contributing to this kind of behavior? And more often than not, I mean, with the exception of, some person who might be in some, they're determined to hurt you, whatever it is.
Right.
More often than not, when you get to the bottom of it, that people were feeling threatened, or
Yeah,
they were
or
missing
they're
something,
just wounded,
or they're
wounded human
wounded.
beings.
Yes, we're
Yeah.
all of us are wounded. It's like the convention of the wound of the walking wounded. Sometimes it's yeah,
Yeah, no, but that it was I mean, and that's why I think it's so critical for practitioners, I mean, healthcare workers, whoever it is that's working with humanity, to do the work, the personal work. The personal work is critical. And I think I'm going to ask you about the personal work. So for Grissel, what else do you do, or what could you advise our listening audience to do to help with the personal work, the journey, to be able to handle all of the different things that we're handling?
yeah. Well, I have to be very honest with you. I've had opportunities. I wish that I could tell you that I am this perfect self-care human being.
I
I am
love
not.
it.
I am not. So I need it's a practice, and because it's a practice, it means that you're not perfect all the time, right?
Exactly.
So the one thing that I had to, one of the things that I have to do, the first thing that I have to do with myself is I have to cut myself some slack. I am a perfectionist, unfortunately, and I like things to be done right the first time, and that is not healthy, right? So one of the first things that I've had to do, one of the practices that I've had to do about to engage in self-care for myself as an administrator and as a human being, is that I have had to give myself grace and
Mm.
understand that I'm not going to be perfect all the time. That's number one. And you'd be
Okay.
surprised how it doesn't mean that I'm giving up or anything like that. It just means that, you know what, Grissel, it's okay for you to not get 100% all the time, or not being at your best all the time. So that. The second one, I know that is very difficult, and I have difficulties doing it, but I have made a choice to block certain times in my calendar for me to take care of myself. So, for example, when you see my schedule at work, I work Monday through Friday. When I come to work, I do my work, right? I'm a good worker. And I also know that I need to have space to protect myself and to take care of myself. So, for example, I block my 30 minutes of lunch. And there is no way unless the world is falling apart and I need to have a meeting at that time, I am going to take my 30 minutes. So I block it in my calendar. So it's blocked for the
That's great.
duration of eternity.
Yeah.
And from 12:30 to 1, I am not available. I also do things at home. I have a good work-life balance. I have to learn this. I wasn't like this all the time. I learned the hard way. So I know that at 5 o'clock, my work ends. I mean, unless obviously things happen, right? And there are times when you need to stay a little bit later, or your boss calls you because something needs to, you need to take care of something. I totally understand that. But when that becomes a routine, then that's no longer acceptable. So I know that at 5 o'clock, it's time for me to go home because I have a family and I want to spend time with my loved ones. And I have other things to do. I have to run errands. I have to, do those things. I know that, and I know that this sounds kind of weird, but I am not a people person. and by that, I mean that I love my solitude. I love to be by myself. And it's probably the one thing that I appreciated about the pandemic, because I had an excuse not to go places because I want to protect you. But the only reason was I thrived in being by myself.
That's
And I
my
was able
husband.
to create, because my brain was not too crowded with, and I was able to do, I exercise. I gained so much weight before the pandemic, and I've lost weight and I gained a few more in the past couple of months for eating too much. But I was able to exercise, so engage in exercise. And even if it's a walk down this, the end of the block or whatever, but that kind of thing. And really, my mom told me that the most important prayer that I could possibly say in the world contained 2 words, and that was thank you. So I am also very thankful for everything that I have, even the sad things that have happened to me. I am thankful for them because I know that I will learn from them. So what I do, and maybe because I grew up very I was raised by people that were very spiritual, and they had a very deep connection. Like we could have like a political discussion or, a very linear conversation, and at the same time bring up angels and that was okay. Like that was not uncommon in my household. So I have a deep connection with messages from anywhere. So for me, every encounter that I have with somebody, I consider that a manifestation of something that I requested. Something that I requested from my. I grew up Catholic, so I would say God or Jesus or whatever. So that I have that deep connection. I don't go to church or anything like that. My mom, my poor mother, she's in heaven, I hope. She's died, but she'll probably roll in her grave knowing that I don't go to church. But my church is everything around me. I find I tend to appreciate everything that's around me, and that sustains me. And there's some people who, they do yoga and things like that. But things that sustain me, sustain not only my spiritual self, and it gives me a strong spiritual connection to the divine. I also want to take care of my physical body. So definitely making sure that I take time to slow down is important. So writing it down, honestly, Charlene, I mean, you've been in healthcare for a very long time. You've been a nurse for a very long time. I've been a nurse for a very long time. It pains me to hear, because I engaged myself in it a long time ago as well. It pains me to hear people kind of upping each other, talking about how it's, I haven't slept I only slept 3 hours, or I haven't been to the bathroom in however, it's just that there's nothing to celebrate, and that is nothing to be upping on each other.
Right.
That is unacceptable. So I have to remember those things. It's like, okay, honestly, using my cell phone to put, as sad as it sounds, to put in alarms so that I know that I need to get up and go to the bathroom. If I need to
whatever it takes
for that, then I do it, because it's very easy. Very easy.
Absolutely.
You just, it's 7 o'clock and you're like, oh, I don't even remember when was the last time I went to the bathroom, and like celebrate it like that is such a great thing. No, you're going to get a UTI. You know? Don't do that.
No, but that's so, I mean, but it seems so basic, but there's so many people that are not doing it.
No, and honestly, and people, and I know, and everybody's like, but we don't have time. If I were to count the many times that you're going to say to me that you don't have time, you've wasted like 30 minutes telling me that you don't have time to do anything. And how about if during the day you take little, I used to teach people 1 minute spas. I remember I used to call it spa. And it stands for slow down. Slow down. I forget what the P was, but it was something along the lines of basically just kind of look at do you need to, how's your body pretty much like
what do you need?
Presence. It was presence. I'm sorry. Presence. It was presence. Slowing down, presence, and O was observation. No, I'm sorry. A was awareness. Spot.
Okay.
So it was slow down, be present with yourself so that you could, it's almost like you did a whole body scan, right? Okay, where am I feeling stress? Like my shoulders all the way up my ears. You know, when was the last time I ate? When was the last time I went to the bathroom? That kind of stuff. So I used to tell people to do that when they were washing their hands. Literally. I mean, we already say that you need to wash your hands between 20 and 30 seconds, right? So if you do that every single time you wash your hands and you take an opportunity to pause and say, okay, how is my body feeling right now? You know, am I hungry or am I tense or am I angry or am I happy? You know, all those things. Doing things that we already do, you need to train your brain to kind of do that. Instead of singing the happy birthday song or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, take an opportunity to kind of listen to your body when you're washing your hands so that you can do that. That is one way that I used to teach people, and I still do it myself.
I actually love that. It's called spa.
I call it spa. Yeah, I call this spa. It was slow down,
practice.
Presence, and awareness. I think that's what I used to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful, actually.
And it gave you an opportunity. So if people ask you, well, do you go to the spa? I say, I go to the spa every day.
I love it.
Right?
Well, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. This has been wonderful. I can talk to you for quite some time with your wonderful spirit. I do want to, a couple things. So our last few questions is, I wanted to know if there's a healthcare worker out there and they really are stuck, struggling, not really sure which way to turn, like, do I stay? I no longer like what I'm doing. Like, how can I get my light back? Or is it time for me to go and do something different? Like, what type of wisdom can you give someone that feels like they're stuck and they're not too sure whether they keep going or move away or what?
Yeah. So I would definitely, of course, the practical Grissel.
Yes.
Say, well, how's your 401? Your resume, that would be the practical Grissel. The Caritas coach Grissel will probably say to this person, how's your heart? And what is it about the feeling of the feeling of being stuck? What is it about? What does it mean for you that you feeling stuck? Because more often than not, there are people who have overstated their stay in whatever department or career that they are, and to the conversation that we had earlier, what if your heart no longer sings to you when you're doing something? If you don't go to work and there is like this little spring in your step, right? Or your little heels kind of click because you're going to go to work and do something that really is meaningful for you, then you need to kind of reassess and think, well, what will bring me that joy back? So I would start with, what does how's your heart? Because it is possible that maybe that sense of unfulfillment or sadness or feeling stuck might have nothing to do with your work. It might have something to do with maybe the environment where you are doing your work, right? Because it might not, you might still love to take care of patients. So you might, but maybe the space where you are is not conducive to that anymore. And maybe it's time to go to another space. Could be within the same organization. It can be in another organization, or it can be that, it can be that you're going to volunteer and read books to kids in some kindergarten or whatever. I mean, that is just as beautiful and powerful as taking care of patients. So I would say, start with your heart and listen and honestly, and sometimes words are not the ones that are going to come. Get a journal. If there is something that people can do that is very useful, get yourself a journal and write down what's in my heart, or how's your heart. And you don't need to write things. You can draw it out. And you'll be amazed the wisdom that is contained in this space that might be able to give you the answers that you seek.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. Well, Grissel, it has been a joy to know who you are and just to hear your heart and all of the wonderful things that you've done. I definitely will be constantly listening and looking and seeing how, you do sound like a total disruptive innovator as well, like Jean is. And so thank you so much for all of your contributions to everything. I know that one of my colleagues said that she had met with you, and that's how they helped her to conceive this project with Caring Science. So your impact is great and it's touching so many different lives. So I really am excited that you came to the show. So as we close, do you have any last thoughts, last words for our listening audience?
You know what? Just be you. Don't be unapologetically you. There is a reason why you came to this world. There is a reason why you came to this profession. There is a reason why you are listening to this interview today. Be you. Don't be anybody else. And know that there are more people like us
yes,
in this world that need to get out of the closet. And I love you. Just know that you are loved, and just know that we are here for you.
That's wonderful. If someone wanted to reach out to you, do you have an opportunity or information for them to do that?
Sure. So I guess you can find me on LinkedIn, Grissel Hernandez. And I'm the one with all the letters behind her name. Probably you'll see me there. And I can I give my personal email, or
sure.
Okay,
sure.
So you can email me at Grissel. So that's GRISSELRN@gmail.com. And
Okay.
I will be happy to talk to you. And, if you have questions around how to integrate caring science at work, in your communities or whatever, I will be more than happy to share with you my experiences.
Well, thank you so much for being on When the Moment Chooses You. And we will see you next time, I hope.
Yes, thank you very much.